Welcome to Season 3 of the Spotlight series, Don't Just Survive, Thrive. Season 1 was launched to help people through the pandemic by talking to a variety of experts about topics such as psychology, finance, and health. Season 2 focused on more work-related issues, including HR, marketing, and leadership. Now it is time for Season 3. Season 3 is centered on the IT industry, specifically tech startups. There are also career spotlights where I talk to senior IT people about the secrets to their impressive career journeys. My name is Nicola Steel, founder of JJP Talent Solutions, an Australian IT recruitment company. For over 20 years, I've helped tech startups and innovative SMEs to attract, recruit, and retain technical talent. I hope you enjoy listening. I'm delighted to introduce Jeff Jaraved and Taryn Syratt. Jeff and Taryn are co-founders of CAASie and Syratt. Jeff also has expertise in robotics and drone navigation. Today we're going to talk about their startup CAASie and their founder's journey. Jeff, Taryn, thank you for joining me on Season 3, Episode 11 of the Spotlight series, Don't Just Survive, Thrive.
Thank you for having us. Really glad to be here.
Thank you. So, first of all, please tell me a little bit more about your personal stories. And ladies first. So, Taryn, let's start with you.
Sure. So, I guess I have a bit of a weird start to a career in marketing because I actually started off as a genetic scientist. So, my qualifications are in applied science, basically, and I did a bit of work in genetics and fertility and that sort of thing. So it's been quite a shift, into that marketing space. But I guess I joined with Jeff in a branding capacity. So I worked on a bit of branding stuff with his business, and then that's how we sort of started working together.
Wow, that's really quite unique, from genetics to marketing to tech startup.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is really interesting. And Jeff, tell me a bit about your story as well, and your expertise there in robotics and drones and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I like to jokingly tell people that I'm a rocket scientist, but I never quite got into rocket science. I know I'd always had, from as long as I could remember, back when I was 5, I had a passion for space and. So I wanted to be an astronomer since I was probably 5, and then that kind of expanded, and I wanted to become, an engineer for rockets and work on going out to space and all that sort of stuff. And I did my degree in aerospace engineering as part of that. So at the time, the space industry in Australia wasn't all that massive. I think we're only just starting to see some companies come into the space. And I started, I started playing around with drones. So I got into a PhD program on drone navigation and robotics. And my PhD project was looking at bridge inspections, trying to do bridge inspections with drones. Over, I think, the course of 2 years, I discovered that it wasn't really my thing. I'm very much a builder, and I like to make things. Research wasn't my cup of tea. So we went and started a branding business to try and get my head around running a business for one, and then eventually one thing led to another. To use the cliche phrase, and here we are with CAASie.
That's brilliant, and wow. Wanting to be an astronomer at 5 is quite ambitious. I'm trying to think what I wanted to be, and my kids want to be, I don't know, actresses and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think I still have the books that I used to read about the universe and all that sort of stuff. They were mostly kids' books that obviously at 5 I was reading, and I'd always talk about the planets and stuff like that to my parents, who had to tolerate me Well, I just read about all things to do with nebulas and stuff like that. And I think eventually, as I got closer towards university, I started to realize I needed a paying job, not just a hobby of looking up through a telescope. So I think that kind of just
Absolutely.
evolved
And it's
from
actually,
there.
I'm just thinking about when I was 5, I was really into dinosaurs.
Yes, I think we all went through that phase.
My degree was in geography and archaeology, so not paleontology, but kind of still having that interest. Then I end up as a recruiter. Interesting. So we all have different life stories, don't we? Absolutely.
Oh,
well,
we
enough
do.
about me. Tell me, Taryn, a little bit more about CAASie.
Yeah, sure. So CAASie was, I guess, something that we built when we saw a need for it with our clients in that branding agency that we spoke about earlier. We work with a lot of small businesses and startups who were looking to build their brand, and we had a few clients who'd asked us about billboards and out-of-home advertising. But when we went to book something for them, it was just so difficult. The process was difficult. The amount of capital required to even begin a campaign was so high. And so we started looking around for ways to book it online like you would for any other sort of online marketing. And we just didn't find anything. So we thought, well, this needs to exist. This is the way that advertising is going, and small businesses just don't get a look in as it currently is. So we started researching how to fix that problem. So CAASie now is very similar to Facebook or Google style advertising. We sort of followed that pay-per-click model, and we developed a self-serve platform where you simply log in, set up your campaign parameters, upload your creative, and then we will schedule it automatically to the billboards that you're interested in at the time that you're interested in. So it's very specific timing, right down to the hour.
So that's down to both timing and location of where the billboards physically are, for example. And Jeff, so both of you have got a real passion for startups. What draws you to this really crazy and unpredictable world?
Well, necessity for one, like Taryn was saying, we're one of the we wanted to do that for a client for our business, and we discovered that there was a gap in the space like that. You Google it and you go, oh, can I do this? I would like to just book a billboard online. I don't want to have to know who to talk to. I just want to be able to do it myself. And that, once you discover that there isn't a, I guess a pre-existing solution for that, you go, okay, well, let's make one. And I think it was, pretty much that, like, the idea, like, there's a gap, let's fill it. And there's also that aspect of eventually, firstly it starts out as, oh, I'm interested in this space, I'm interested in trying to fix a problem. And then it turns into stubbornness and persistence, and it turns into all these a determined drive to not be proved wrong. And you just don't want to give up, because giving up, it's like defeat is not an option. You have to make it work. And ultimately, it just becomes this animal that you're growing. And I think Taryn can relate to that. Like, we started out it just being something interesting to do, and now it's very much something you don't want to let go of, because
like an obsession. And I've, over the last 6 months and beyond, but 6 months with this podcast, is talking to startup founders, and that's a really common theme. Being really stubborn, being almost obsessed about it. Failure is not an option. So if I ask, well, what happens if it failed? What would you do? Well, that ain't going to happen, is the kind of attitude. It's funny, I think my kids should be startup founders, because they are really stubborn, difficult individuals. But that's brilliant. And as I say, it is a very common theme and personality trait. And in terms of the real purpose behind CAASie, what do you really want it to do, Taryn?
For me, it's about the small businesses having easy access to a medium that they've never been able to have that kind of access to before. So the drive is definitely towards smaller businesses. And obviously there's a lot of opposition to that in the industry because that's all targeted to large businesses, but that's kind of where we are really interested. And I'd like to see this happen sort of not just Australia-wide, but across the globe as well. So, a lot of startups need to advertise in the US, for example, to get their feet on the ground. And we give you the ability to do that without having to actually be there and know that.
That's brilliant. Jeff, the impact that you really wanted to have on the world with CAASie?
I think for me, the biggest kind of goal for us, like going on what Taryn said, it's about getting that, make it accessible to small businesses. And I think that ideally, in my ideal future, it's a scenario where if a small business needs to advertise, right now it's like, oh, I need to be on, I need to advertise on Instagram, or I need to advertise on Facebook or Google, and that's pretty much the first 2 or 3 things that come to your mind. We'd like billboards to be one of those things. Like we'd like CAASie specifically to be one of those, the de facto standard, I guess, for any small business thinking, oh, I'd like to just do it myself because I don't really have the kind of capital to commit to a contract, or I don't know the people in the industry enough for me to just go out and call up my mate who owns a billboard or something like that. We want us to be that stepping stone towards, I guess, getting your brand out there, right? And the way I've seen it and the way I've kind of described it to people in the past is we want to be what HubSpot is for CRM, in that HubSpot is the very first one you tried because that's what small business people know. They know HubSpot. I mean, it's only after you discover HubSpot that you learn about things like Zoho or Salesforce, because those are like the next level up. We'd like CAASie to be that stepping stone towards getting your brand out there with billboards, because it is a format that has traditionally been inaccessible to small business. Usually, small business is restricted to just advertising on Facebook and Google, and there's no real other opportunity there without having a degree in marketing or advertising to know specifically the platforms that they can use and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. Because when when you're driving into the city or wherever and you see the big billboards, I'm a small business, and I look at those. I wouldn't even contemplate that I'd have the funds to advertise on those, but you've opened up a whole new world of potential opportunity, and you can't just rely on one platform, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever, less so newspaper advertising nowadays and what have you. So that's really awesome, giving more opportunities to small businesses, and I guess startups as they become scale-ups as well. So that's really awesome. And Taryn, so you and Jeff are co-founders and also are life partners as well.
Yes, it makes for some interesting discussions.
So now I'm married. I could not imagine working with my husband. It would be horrible. So tell me, how does it work as as co-founders when you're also a couple as well?
I would say in some ways it's harder but also easier, because I can imagine, like we talked about obsession before, if I wasn't part of this journey with Jeff, his obsession would take him far away from me. But because I'm part of it, I get to be with him still. So I think in that way, it's actually a lot easier. I'm a lot more understanding of the pressure that he's under. He's understanding the pressure that I'm under. So that makes it very good. But of course, there is the aspect that we never get separation from each other. So we live together, we work together, and I'm not talking about 9 to 5. I mean like 24 hours.
Absolutely. And I guess, do you have kids or? So
no,
it's like your baby as well, that you're growing together and what have you. And Jeff, what's your opinion on having a co-founder and your co-founder also being your life partner?
No, I mean, I'm really glad. Like I throughout the entire time, my my biggest worry was drifting apart from Taryn because I had, too much of a focus on the business. And that's kind of why, like, right from the start, I kept asking Taryn, like, join us, like, let's do this together rather than me just having my startup, because I thought that what would ultimately happen is I would lead two lives, right? I'd have one life at home and another life in my startup, and it'd be two love affairs really, and it would be one of those situations where you'd be in that situation where I'm either not giving one enough attention or not giving the other enough attention, and I thought, you know what, it's just better if we did this together because at least we'd have given it our best shot together rather than ever having to choose.
And also, co-founders need to complement each other. You can't both have exactly the same skill set because you'll be tripping over each other. And couples as well, you need to have that yin and that yang and what have you. So how that relationship there, from more of a business perspective, how does that fit? How do you complement each other, would you say?
The first thing that comes to mind is that Jeff talks a lot and I don't, which fits me really well. So I'm more on the strategy side of the business, so I'm thinking about where we're going to go, and Jeff is the technical side of the business and he's thinking about what we're going to build. So that's sort of where we complement each other in that way. But unfortunately, there are some crossovers, like that stubbornness and that perfectionism that we both have, which I think can be detrimental to a startup to have all the founders in the same boat.
So I guess you're, from a strategy, you're a bigger picture person, and he's looking more at the detail and what have you from a technical perspective.
I guess a broad generalization in that I do tend to notice that sometimes there are different areas where each of us is a broad thinker. Like, we would have some areas where I'm a narrow thinker and Taryn's a broad thinker, and other areas where Taryn's a narrow thinker and I'm the broad thinker. And it's often this weird role reversal that we tend to have, where one of us is saying, look, think bigger picture, and then you'll have another day where it's a different topic and the other person will be like, think bigger picture. And it's just really interesting in that, like, the way the personalities are so complex that you couldn't really generalize which area we fit in. It's why we wear so many hats. It's like sometimes, like, particularly emails, where Taryn would spend an hour on writing one perfect email, and I would spend 5 minutes writing an email. Whereas if we're having a conversation, I waffle a lot and Taryn doesn't. So it's like...
Awesome. So you've had your startup now for, I think, is it 4 years?
Well, we've had Curious for the last 3 years, and then CAASie's been the last 1 year.
Awesome. So over that last year and the 3 years as well, what would you say the main challenges have been?
I think for me, the main challenges have been a personal challenge, believing that I can do what I'm doing, because it's something that obviously I don't have industry experience in. I'm a scientist. What am I doing in the media world? So I think for me, it's getting over that side of things. I guess I face that a lot more often than I have to face technical challenges like Jeff probably does.
No, honestly, a technical challenge for me hasn't been the big, like, that's for you kind of think you're led to believe that the technical challenge will be the big problem when it comes to having a SaaS business or having a startup in general, and particularly in the technical space. But it's not so much the big issue. The big issue is usually, like, as Taryn was saying, the self-belief, not having the imposter syndrome when you're next to all other people you perceive as being quite successful. And also having confident, frank conversations with clients and inspiring their confidence has been quite challenging for us. Like, throughout the first, part of last year, we struggled quite a bit with that, because not only do you have to believe in what it is you're doing, you have to project that you do believe in what it is you're doing, and you need to inspire other people. And that isn't a skill that can really be taught to somebody. Or maybe it can, but I haven't been taught that. I had to learn that all on my own, and that's not something you get prepared for when you're going out to start a business. And like that, I think probably by far is the biggest challenge for us, is when we...
You were talking about clients?
Yeah, like I was basically saying that you really need to project confidence in what you do so that even as a client, they feel trust, right? And when you are in that, you're experiencing things like imposter syndrome, and you're experiencing things like, oh, is this even going to work? You're at risk of expressing that, would you say, underconfidence, or expressing those doubts to them. And that is a real killer for a deal. You've got to really be comfortable in your own skin. And that, for me, coming from pretty much freshly out of university and freshly out of a completely different field, was
absolutely
quite challenging.
And it sounds from both of you like mindset and confidence has almost been one of the main challenges. And interestingly, I recently posted a video I did. Do you know Pauline Fatui, the GM at River City Labs?
Yeah.
And we were talking about seeking investment. And one of the things that she said is the importance of being really, really confident, to have the confidence in the investors. So it's a similar thing with confidence in your clients and what have you.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And actually, so talking about investments, how have you funded your startup?
So to begin with, most of the funds came from Syratt, so the agency work that we were doing. And as time progressed, we started just winding that down. And right now, the business pretty much pays for itself, just CAASie on its own. We don't yet, it's still early days for us, so we don't yet have what I would call a comfortable living wage for all the founders. So we do have to do a little bit of side work here and there to try and make ends meet. But overall, we are fully bootstrapped. So we fund ourselves, we develop everything in-house, everything that is, like website, the app, the creative work, and all of that is done in-house. And we're just lucky enough that we have the skill set amongst the team to make that happen, or else we would be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess there are pros and cons of getting investment and bootstrapping. Obviously, with the investment, you can grow more quickly. Yeah. Bootstrapping, you've got more freedom. And so you kind of have to look at the two of them. And as we've been talking, I thought that CAASie was a little bit older. Do you refer to her as she or it? She.
She
has a personality. So CAASie came about just before really the pandemic started. So
yeah. Which was
unfortunate. So obviously it's been difficult. Has it been worse than you expected, about what you expected, or even better because people are still investing in marketing?
I would say it has been about what we expected, and in some ways a little bit better. People are more open to different ideas in marketing now because they've had to change their way of thinking. But it has obviously been quite difficult. Everybody's holding on to their marketing budgets. Nobody's going outdoors during lockdowns. And we are primarily an outdoor advertising platform. So it definitely has thrown us a lot of challenges. And I think coming back to that confidence thing, that was probably something that played on our minds a lot as well, is, can I convince somebody to spend their money outdoor while everybody's locked in their houses?
But I think, as you say, if you look at the blessing of COVID, and there are some, I believe, that people looking at things differently and considering new ideas, it's kind of a good time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We did experience a little bit of that where people basically said, look, the what we've believed as the standard formula to doing marketing has now been challenged because everything is different. So we may as well try a new platform. We'll give this a shot. And that's been a bit of a blessing for us. We've seen a few businesses definitely do CAASie campaigns because they said, look, this is, well, to use the cliche once again, unprecedented times. And, so they've tried new techniques and they found it quite successful for them. And for a lot of people, we blow expectations because, with out-of-home or outdoor advertising, they expect a massive budget requirement. They expect that it's going to cost a lot of money. And when they discover that they're getting results for comparable amounts of money to what they've traditionally spent on Facebook, that's been mind-blowing for a lot of people. So we've had, the reception has just in general been really good. And I couldn't say if we'd, launched a year earlier, if it would have been better or worse, because it was such a mixed
Absolutely. Bag. And don't use that term unprecedented times and pivot. It's like, oh my goodness, we've heard that so much.
I know.
Absolutely.
It's been crazy, hasn't it?
And I don't think I've asked you, what does CAASie stand for?
It stands for Contextually Aware Advertising System. So we came from obviously bringing together my robotics background. The original idea at some point, there were a lot of original ideas, but one of them was to basically deliver ads in things like bus shelters and places where you could have a camera on those screens or outdoor or indoor screens, whatever they happen to be, and deliver a message or an ad that was triggered by the context. So the people who are there, the weather conditions, the traffic conditions, what's happening in current events in the news, being able to use all of that context to drive whether a ad would display on the screen. And that was our initial prototype. So we thought that this is a little bit creepy. And we were like, okay, we need to put a face to it. We need to put a lovable, either an animal or some other personality associated with this. And that's kind of where CAASie came up. That's why we made her a robot. We gave her a personality, but we ultimately didn't end up putting cameras on those billboards or screens. We went down a different direction, but CAASie stayed because we loved her.
So CAASie is literally your little baby girl. So, not literally. Sorry, that was wrong terminology.
Figuratively.
So, in terms of CAASie, Taryn, what are the plans for the next 3 to 5 years and beyond, would you say?
I think it's about growing the user base and the team for us for the next 5 years, really establishing ourselves in Australia before we start to branch out into other markets.
And I think Australia is in a really good position on the global stage at the moment with what's going on. And then when the rest of the world sorts themselves out, then go further afield.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and Jeff, tell me, what's your end goal?
I've been asked that question so many times, and I think my answer has always been different because it's always coming at a different time. Honestly, like I said, before, early on, one of your questions, I want CAASie to be, in a way, a household name for businesses. So anyone running a small business, when they think, oh, I need to market my business, when they think I need to put it on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, I want them to think I want to put it on CAASie as well. It is to become that initial, the very first step a business takes when they go to get some brand awareness. And I don't mind overall, if a business decides, I've outgrown CAASie. If they, once they try it and they say, look, we've become experienced enough with this that we're going to try bigger, beefier, more technical platforms, I don't mind. But we want to be for the small business. We want to be for the startup, and we want to be the most fun, quirky, interesting SaaS platform out
Love
there.
it. I like fun and quirky.
Yeah, so do we. So we decided to do
Absolutely. Sorry, Taryn, were you talking then?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, in the B2B world, there's no such thing as fun and quirky.
There's no personality, and I think that's missing quite a bit, and we want to fill that space.
I completely agree. I think you've got to be different and not be afraid and stand out, and be unique. Well, thank you very much for sharing your insights, Jeff and Taryn. Is there anything else that you'd like to share at all?
No, I mean, I'd love for any listeners who are thinking about looking beyond Facebook, or if they're looking for a different avenue for marketing that is really cost effective. I would love to chat. Obviously, our website is CAASie.co. So that's CAASie with 2 A's. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, anywhere. I'm more than happy to chat with any business. I'm always excited, particularly to meet startup founders, other founders in the SaaS space, and other founders, whatever you're doing in the startup. I'd love to hear your story. But yeah, look, we're more than open for a conversation, or grabbing a cup of coffee, or whatever you drink if you're in Brisbane. So yeah, absolutely. And also thank you for having us. It's been
my pleasure.
Time.
Thank you very much. Sorry, we had a couple of technical hiccups, and my dog chasing a leaf. But apart from that, it's been absolutely delightful to speak to you. And I guess you're not just looking at Brisbane, you're looking Australia-wide, so you could always have a virtual drink.
Oh yeah, we're open to a virtual coffee anywhere in Australia and anywhere in the world, actually, because we've got screens in the US and Europe. We're soon to have screens all over Asia as well. So yeah, and one of the other things to bear in mind is we talk about billboards as being, I guess that's a recognizable term. People know what a billboard is, but that includes things like the fuel bowser at the fuel station. It includes things like doctors' offices and pharmacies and all these kinds of indoor places that you don't often think of as a billboard. And a lot of people we talk to think, oh, you mean the big roadside stuff. But that isn't all. There are so many screens, and it always opens up. It blows my mind every time we get a new one and think, oh wow, there's screens in this location, like screens on top of tables in restaurants and stuff like that. It's just not what you would typically think of when you think billboards.
Well, you've opened up my mind, because I hadn't thought about that either. But if I'm at the doctor's, or you're just waiting around for something and you've got a screen, it does capture your attention. And if it's something that you need or want or are considering, you do act upon it if you stood there with your phone and you've got time to spare. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Taryn, is there anything else that you'd like to share at all?
No, I think Jeff waffled on enough.
He's the talker in your relationship, as you say. That's perfect. Well, thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. If you're looking for career advice, your next career opportunity, or to grow your tech team, then please call me, Nicola Steel, on 0499 773 546, or go to our website, jjptalent.com.au. The Don't Just Survive, Thrive podcast is part of the Spotlight series, which includes the YouTube channel, Spotlight on Software Development. If you want more insights into the software industry, particularly tech startups, then subscribe to the Spotlight on Software Development YouTube channel. Thank you for listening. Until next time.